News, an alarming diagnosis for the health sector. Why it's feared patients are being put at risk this Easter. Where the most vehicle plates are being stolen, with a significant jump in the number being pinched.
What's going on?
What's going on is never before heard demo tapes recorded by Marvin Gaye have resurfaced. Could they include a posthumous hit for the late soul legend? Good evening. A lack of staff and fewer after-hours facilities are pushing the health sector to breaking point. One clinic in Hawke's Bay warning Health New Zealand and the Minister about a significant risk that could reduce its ability to see patients. Long weekends like Easter creating extra pressure. Here's Corazon Miller's exclusive report.
Despite it being Easter Sunday, it's still a revolving door of patients at this urgent and after-hours clinic.
The services throughout the country are quite fragile, so all it takes is one person to be sick and suddenly things start to get quite sticky.
He says that fragility is felt keenly in hard-to-staff regions. This week he was notified Napier's Tamatea Medical Centre had issued a Section 14. It's a formal legal step that in this case saw the clinic inform its management and the government there was a significant risk that is likely to reduce its ability to meet its obligations. In this case, the requirement to help staff a separate, collectively run after-hours clinic in Napier.
It's onerous for us at the moment because we are also trying to manage our practice and be sustainable in the practice and try and minimise the wait time for patients.
His months-long hunt for new doctors has been fruitless, and without resolving the staffing shortage at his own medical centre, it's unclear how much longer it can provide the after-hours support.
We have to start making strategic decisions about, firstly, our sustainability.
In a statement, Health NZ said it was aware of the Section 14 alert, but it was a matter between the practice and the local primary health organisation, Health Hawke's Bay. It added earlier this year there was a $17 million rapid injection into urgent care as it looks at how it can redesign the system. Nationwide, staffing and funding issues have seen fewer clinics provide after-hours care, which makes the Easter roster an even tighter juggle.
Just seems to be generally the services are in decline and getting harder and harder to maintain.
Obviously, if people need care, that will be provided, but there will be waits.
She says in Auckland they could exceed 6 hours this holiday period.
We're the people that patients see most often, so anything we can do to improve that workforce is going to be beneficial for the whole country.
Otherwise, they say the future looks
bleak,
and that could see those they vowed to help suffer most.
And Corazon is with me now. Kia ora, Corazon. What happens if clinics like Tamatea Medical Centre can't fill staff rosters?
Well, there's clearly no easy solution here, but it's clear that we can't have clinics running rosters where their doctors are expected to work day after day after day. That's simply not sustainable. The public health organisation that's overseeing the management of this clinic said it's trying to do things like utilise telehealth services to try to alleviate some of that pressure, but it's clear there could still be some tough decisions ahead, and we've seen what that can look like. Down in Invercargill just this month, there was a doctor after-hours clinic there that had to close its doors. There's a temporary solution that's been put in place where people can go in after hours, but they need to have an appointment, and that's not for any of those urgent cases. Palmerston North, similarly, they also had struggle with staff, and they had to reduce, there was a clinic there that had to reduce its after hours service. So while we're hearing about this today, it's clearly not the first case, and it's unlikely to be the last.
So then where do all these patients go?
Well, the next option is, of course, the emergency department when people desperately need that care. But we've already heard those stories of patients who've gone in and they've faced those really long waiting times. There simply isn't enough staff there either. They're not overflowing with those nurses and doctors that we so desperately need. And doctors, they really would much rather be able to have the opportunity to treat those patients in places like GP clinics and after-hours centres to make sure that patients are treated before they get so sick that they need that hospital care. care. That'll save lives, and in the long run, it'll save dollars, which are so desperately needed to help continue funding our healthcare system.
Carissa Miller, thank you for the update. Meanwhile, Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand says one confirmed measles case and another probable one have been identified. Abby Wakefield has more details. Kia ora, Abby, what can you tell us about this?
Good evening, Wendy. Here's what we know. The cases spent time in Auckland, Waikato and Tauranga between the 23rd and the 26th of March. Now, the cases and all of their close contacts are currently being supported by local public health services, and those most at risk are now in quarantine. But what is a real point of concern here is that those cases did not travel overseas, so it's suspected that they caught measles locally. I spoke to a public health official a short time ago. Here's what he had to say.
What we do know from these cases is that they haven't been overseas themselves, and we're not aware that they've had any contact with people who've been overseas. So that means we don't know where they've got it from, and that makes us worried that there may be further cases in the community.
Now, measles symptoms to be aware of include a fever, a cough, a runny nose, sore red eyes, and a rash that begins on the face and then spreads down the body. If you are experiencing any of those symptoms, contact Healthline urgently.
Abby Wakefield, thank you. Police are reminding Kiwis to stay alert and focused as Malaysia's Prime Minister pays tribute to 2 foreign students killed over the long weekend. The Easter Road toll now sits at 5 after a motorist was killed on State Highway 5 just south of Rotorua this morning. Another death also confirmed today, with police saying a motorcyclist died in hospital overnight after a collision with a tractor. And the University of Canterbury has confirmed 2 students killed in yesterday's multi-vehicle crash near Lake Pukaki were from Malaysia, with the country's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim passing on his condolences to their families. Number plate theft is on the rise, according to police figures released to One News. There's been a more than 30% increase over the past 5 years. Now there are calls for the government to do more. Jacob Johnson explains.
Making sure these number plates stay in place. Business advocates in this Auckland suburb say the area is becoming a plate-stealing hotspot.
Look, it definitely is increasing, and Dominion Road unfortunately is known as the crime corridor of Auckland.
Number plate theft has become more common right across the country. Despite a dip during the pandemic, the number of plates stolen climbed between 2021 and 2023, with more than 9,000 stolen last year. And in the first 2 months of this year, there have been more than 1,200 thefts, the highest level of offending in Waitemata and Auckland City.
I think there's something like 17 cars this week alone, as many as 30 sometimes across the greater Auckland area. So there's a lot of theft.
With the help of police, these volunteers run a program called Safer Plates, parking up in busy areas to offer some minor vehicle adjustments.
We put a tamper-proof screw into the place of your normal screws in your number plates, and that minimises the risk of plates for being used for criminal purposes.
It fuels a cycle of crime with petrol drive-offs, burglaries, ram raids, and also concealing the identity of getaway vehicles.
He says initiatives like this help, but have limited reach.
What we want to see is the mandating of tamper-proof screws on all new and used vehicle sales throughout the country.
Police Minister Mark Mitchell told One News any decisions around mandates sit with police, who say for now they'll continue to support programs like Safer Plates and recommend the use of tamper-proof screws.
These volunteers say most people are astounded to learn that plates are a target for thieves.
You know, they've never even thought about it happening. We often go on patrol and we'll witness cars in a car park somewhere, and all of a sudden you'll spot a car without a plate.
Doing their bit to make these harder to take. Jacob Johnson, One News.
A Kiwi skier trapped on a chairlift, battered by high winds, feared she would never see her family again. Video has emerged of the lifts at Cervino ski resort in Italy being violently tossed around by 110 km/h winds. Stephanie Burt has told the Daily Mail a nearby chair only just missed her during the 40-minute ordeal. She says she's traumatised and slammed the resort's lack of safety protocols. UN military observers and an interpreter have been wounded by shell explosions at Israel's border with Lebanon. With them, an Australian, also injured. Lebanese security officials say it was an Israeli drone strike, and the UN says targeting peacekeepers is unacceptable. But Israel's distancing itself from the incident. Kim Baker-Wilson reports.
The distinctive site of the UN.
We are very visible. We have white vehicles with the UN written on it, big blue flags.
Making it difficult, he says, to mistake them for anyone else. But unarmed military observers and their translator have been struck by a blast. They're in stable conditions.
We have launched an investigation to look into this incident and into the explosions. I know that there are a lot of speculations at the moment.
UNIFIL is the long-standing UN interim force in Lebanon. Multinational peacekeepers deployed along the border with Israel. The blast comes amid escalating clashes between Israel and Hezbollah militants. Both sides have exchanged fire since war broke out in Gaza. Israel says it's not true an explosion from it struck a UNIFIL vehicle. There have been new protests against the war in Gaza, in Pakistan, in Iraq, London, and in Tel Aviv. Scuffles broke out between anti-government protesters and security forces. Egypt was hosting foreign ministers from France and Jordan. The war in Gaza on the agenda. Egyptian state television says new truce talks between Israel and Hamas, also in Cairo, are about to get underway. Underway now, more food drops from the sky, and at sea, a second shipment of aid is on the way.
3 of the boats are going right now to the coast of Gaza with tons of food for the people of Gaza.
400 tons, enough to make 1 million meals. But officials say it's all not enough, and more aid needs to get in by road. Kim Baker-Wilson, One News.
The two Wanaka New World supermarkets have decided to trade as usual over the long weekend, yet again ignoring Easter trading rules. Both stores are open despite not having essential store status, and now face being fined like they were when they previously breached the Shop Trading Act in 2021 and 2022. Owner Foodstuff says with the town filled with tens of thousands of extra visitors for the Warbirds Air Show, it was decided to ensure everyone had access to groceries over the break. And the quirks in the Easter trading laws on full display in our biggest city today, with retailers on one street in one suburb allowed to operate. Isabel Prasad explains.
Easter Sunday for many is a well-deserved day off, and current trading laws mean most shops must shut their doors. But at boutique store Masala Bazaar in the Auckland suburb of Parnell, it's business as usual.
Our community who are shopping with us, it's a day off, it's Sunday, there's not a lot else to do, so being able to open today is really amazing.
That's because under the Shop Trading Hours Act from 1977, Parnell Road businesses were granted an exemption to trade on specific days, including Easter Sunday.
It is a bit of an upper hand for Parnell. People be able to walk by and have a little pop in because they're just having their coffee or they're finished up with church for the morning.
But a suburb away, it's a different story.
You hop on the bus and keep on to Newmarket. Oh God, this place is dead. There's nobody here. All the shops are shut.
He says a 2016 law giving councils the power to decide their own trading policies has created confusion on who can and can't open on Easter Sunday.
That I'm just very pro-choice. So if businesses choose to work and employees want to work, that should be allowed regardless of the day.
He'd like to see a one-size-fits-all approach.
It would be really good if the decision-making was re-centralised back to Wellington and a policy was put across the country so there was consistency and everyone knew what was going on.
Probably restricts the amount of Kiwis that come out and actually do things.
I think if shops want to be open, they can be open.
I think it should be people's choice.
Maybe a bit outdated. Time for a change.
The ACT Party agrees. MP Cameron Luxton has lodged a bill to put an end to trading restrictions, a step towards a change that some business owners say is long overdue. Isabel Prasad, One News.
FIRKNA just ahead, salvage crews remove the first pieces of the crumpled Baltimore Bridge as the last driver to cross it recounts the moment it collapsed. And the secret to the universe could be ghost particles, how scientists soon hope to detect the undetectable. Kia ora Anna, welcome back. The clean-up continues for the collapsed Baltimore Bridge as teams of engineers cut away sections of twisted steel. The debris making it too dangerous for divers to recover the 4 remaining missing bodies. The ABC's Chuck Sivitson has more.
The first sections of debris from the Francis Scott Key Bridge are now being removed 5 days after that container ship lost power and collided with the bridge, sending concrete and metal plunging into the water.
The north sections of the Key Bridge are going to be cut up and removed. This will eventually allow us to open up a temporary restricted channel that will help us to get more vessels in the water around the site of the collapse.
The governor acknowledging the impact this is having on the economy.
And the nation's economy and the nation's workers are relying on us to move quickly and to move together.
But admitting the recovery is going to take time.
And we will continue to marshal people and resources to ensure that we have everything that we need to do this work as safely, as efficiently, and as effectively as possible.
President Biden approved Maryland's request for a federal disaster declaration, which will provide help for small businesses in the area.
Because of this declaration, small businesses affected by the disaster can now apply for disaster loan assistance from the federal government.
Larry DeSantis traveled across the bridge every day. He says he was one of the last to drive over before the collapse, telling ABC's Jay O'Brien he didn't hear the bridge fall, but says he noticed one thing: no one was driving behind him.
It was an eerie feeling because there was no vehicles at all. And normally that time of the morning, even that time of the morning, because it's right there at Amazon, you'll see 20, 30 tractor trailers coming and going.
And
there was nothing.
Meanwhile, officials say they are continuing to focus on recovering the bodies of the 4 missing construction workers.
Salvage crews say until more debris is cleared, the Dali, the container ship that struck the bridge on Tuesday, can't be moved. A man's been arrested in the Netherlands after taking 4 people hostage in a Dutch nightclub overnight. The hostages were employees. They were cleaning the venue where they were held for several hours and threatened with knives before being released. The man peacefully surrendered to police, who say there was no indication of a terrorist motive. Around 150 homes in the area were evacuated during the incident. Artificial intelligence has been used to diagnose breast cancer in women whose tumours would have been missed through conventional methods. Initial success in the trial is raising hopes for a boost in early stage detection. As the BBC's Zoe Kleinman reports, the tech has a way to go yet.
So this is one of the extra cancers that was picked up by the AI.
That is so tiny.
Yes, it is indeed. And you can see why 2 human readers would have just looked through, compared it. It looks very much the same and would have said that that's normal.
Here in Aberdeen, Dr. Gerald Lipp has just led the first NHS evaluation of an artificial intelligence tool called Mia, designed to help improve breast cancer diagnosis. The initial results are encouraging.
It's almost like another colleague. And someone has a second opinion looking over your shoulder and helping you. So 1 human reader and then the AI doing the next read, we could move our turnaround time from 14 days down to 3 days. Any tests in the hospital, I've had tests, you're kind of waiting on that result and you want to know it as soon as you can.
Barbara's cancer was so tiny, Dr. Lipp and his team didn't spot it, but Mia did.
I'm just incredibly grateful. If I hadn't had that, then I don't know when I would have found it.
The early diagnosis meant that Barbara needed shorter and less invasive treatment. She told me without AI, her tumour might not have been spotted for another 3 years at her next routine scan, by which point it would have been a lot bigger and might have spread.
You say cancer and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I felt a fraud because it was so small. It's just so easy. There's no extra appointment or anything. And then when you have the operation, it's at a very early stage. So it's minimal compared to what it could be.
AI is good at this when it's properly trained to spot early, tiny symptoms of a specific disease. But this isn't perfect yet. It has a tendency to overdiagnose, and also because of current health guidelines, it's not allowed to learn on the job and evolve as it's used.
It was fed millions of images of scans from women around the world to enable it to recognise specific signs of potential breast cancer. Currently, human specialists analyse up to 10,000 scans per year. The hope is that AI tech like Nia might one day reduce that workload and the strain that goes with it.
Scientists believe ghost particles account for 95% of the particles that make up the universe. The trouble is, there's little proof they exist. Now, a new experiment's underway to find evidence for them. Here's the BBC's correspondent, Pallab Ghosh.
Our universe is as mysterious as it is beautiful. But in recent years, astronomers have discovered that what we can see accounts for only 5% of the cosmos. Some scientists think that the rest might be made up of other ghost particles that can't be detected by earthly instruments. Instead, they pass right through our reality.
If we could detect these ghost particles, it would really transform our understanding of fundamental science. We could really try and start to understand why the universe is the way it is, what the missing matter is, or how some of these properties come about, and therefore why we're here at all.
Researchers at the Large Hadron Collider near Geneva have been searching for them for years, but haven't found them yet. The ghost particles appear extremely rarely, so the researchers are building a much more sensitive instrument. Normally, in particle accelerators, bunches of particles are sent on a collision course, but only 1 in a billion actually hit each other. The new instrument crashes them against a block of material, so they all get smashed into smaller bits. And this greatly increases the chances of creating ghost particles. The discovery of the ghost particles would shed new light on the true nature of our universe.
It's believed the new machine will be 1,000 times more sensitive to ghost particles than previous instruments. Tackling climate change can often feel like a big topic, and it can be hard to work out what we can do to make a real difference. But there are everyday habits that can help reduce our personal carbon footprint. In the next instalment of our Climate Check series, Melissa Stokes went to Gen Less to find out how we can all play our part.
Every day, every one of us is producing emissions. Experts call it a carbon footprint. And to help the environment, we need to make our foot size smaller. Like many things in life, it comes down to choices. And we can all do something to lower our individual or household emissions. Food's a big one. It accounts for around a quarter of our day-to-day emissions. So try taking meat out of one meal a week. That reduces a typical family's emissions by around 7%. And don't forget to have a meal plan. All this rubbish we chuck out, around 32 kilograms per year, wastes all the carbon used to produce it. Here's a staggering statistic. By next year, the world's digital activity could produce the same amount of emissions as all the cars produce today. The best thing to do for climate change and our mental health is to close our devices. Mum always told me to go for quality over quantity when clothes shopping. It turns out she was right. Buying clothes that last is good for the planet. Top tips are to check buttons, stitches and zips are sturdy and go for fabrics that aren't see-through. The fashion industry produces 10% of global emissions, so be laser focused when shopping. Decide what you need and only look for that. Hard, I know. And don't forget vintage and second-hand stores. Driving less is one of the best ways to reduce our carbon footprint. Trouble is, us Kiwis love being in the car, driving 49 billion kilometres per year. So if you're up for it, why not find some friends to carpool with? Hi! Most of our car trips are really short, 2Ks or less, so think about taking the bike to the local dairy or to school. Like anything, all these little steps can really add up.
And there's plenty more explainers on our website. Go to onenews.co.nz/climatecheck to watch. Well, coming up, decades before American Idol, past stars discovered at amateur nights contests continue to be celebrated. How the famous Apollo Theatre in Harlem, New York is being refitted to showcase possible headliners of the future. Plus, possible new music from Marvin Gaye. Why another 80s hit could be hiding in the unreleased tapes in Belgium.
And no doubt Aucklanders will be feeling the chill as temperatures overnight drop to single figures across most of Aotearoa, down to 9 for parts of Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and 7 for Ōtautahi, Christchurch. Meanwhile, Taumaru Nui was the coldest, dropping to sub-zero conditions. But will temperatures rise again, or has winter come early? Mo tonu mai. I'll have more detail after sport.
Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on?
That's Marvin Gaye's 1971 hit, What's Going On? And fans are now hoping there could be more to come. 40 years on from the soul singer's death, tapes containing unreleased material have resurfaced in Belgium, part of a collection of personal items he'd left behind after living there in the early 80s. And a Belgian family in possession of the collection believe they're holding at least one potential posthumous hit. The BBC's Kevin Connolly reports.
Marvin Gaye, seen here in a legendary performance at Montreux, made some of the greatest records in pop history. But what if there are more songs, maybe more classics, that no one has ever heard?
These are the tapes.
This Belgian lawyer says there is just such a track, although he's keeping it under wraps for now. He'll describe it to us, but he won't play it to us.
It's an amazing song, a great tune, great lyrics, catchy, and I thought this is a planetary enlightenment moment.
I'm interested to hear them. The jazz musician and Marvin Gaye expert Gary Crosby is looking forward to hearing any new songs.
We don't know until we hear the tapes. We actually don't know. But we are talking about Marvin Gaye, one of the greatest artists of all time. There's bound to be something of value in there.
We did hear a sample of hours of private recordings, and there is a lot of unheard Marvin Gaye material. A vast collection of audio cassettes, stage costumes and documents has turned up in Belgium because in the early 80s, Marvin Gaye lived in Ostend and gifted his landlord's family a treasure trove of memorabilia, which they now propose to sell.
The clothes and the accessories, they will be sold.
Any new music, though, could only be sold with the permission of Marvin Gaye's children. Compromise is called for, says Alex Trapaniers.
I want to reach my hand to the family, because when you exploit the copyright which is in the tapes, you can't do that without the authorization of his 3 children.
If there are to be negotiations over any new material, they have yet to start. But there is at least a chance that another pop classic could emerge from this unexpected source.
And Marvin Gaye's 3 children are yet to respond, but lawyers for 2 of them are now aware the collection exists. It's where some American musicians like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday first wowed audiences before going on to become stars, and where now famous genres of music were first heard. Now New York's Apollo Theatre is expanding to become the biggest African-American theatre company in the world. Our US correspondent was taken behind the scenes of this world-renowned venue to learn about the greats that have graced its legendary stage.
Hello, my name is Billy Mitchell, Mr. Apollo, and welcome to the Apollo Theatre in Harlem, New York.
Nestled in the heart of Harlem, New York, this isn't just a theatre. The Apollo claims to hold the soul of American culture.
So when you walk through the door, you're going to feel some type of energy. I promise you that.
That energy comes from a theatre that quite literally has seen it all.
This building is actually 110 years old. The building was opened up in 1914 as a burlesque house.
But the mayor bans them for being too vulgar.
And in 1934, this special type of music was coming out that people were interested in. It was called jazz.
Hello, Dolly.
Louis Armstrong, Frank Sinatra, just some of the talent scouted for the newly christened Apollo Theatre. Then 90 years ago came the idea of hosting a talent show.
The first young lady to come out and win that talent competition, the first year it started, she went on to become a legend, was none other than Ella Fitzgerald.
A contest they continue to this day. Every week amateurs get the chance to perform, never knowing who might be in the audience with the power to change their lives. But it's not just jazz icons. Legends like Elton John, the Jackson 5, even Drake have performed at this iconic New York venue. Celebrities who have taken to the stage or just visited, leaving their mark on the wall of signatures.
We have Nicki Minaj over here, the young lady rapper. We have Snoop Dogg right here. Oprah Winfrey, Tony Bennett, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama.
This theatre's growth also coincided with the civil rights movement, with the stage showcasing black music and culture to a rapidly changing United States. Motown, R&B, hip-hop, this was where it lived and breathed and took the world by storm. The greats immortalized in Apollo's own walk of fame outside.
The first person we inducted was Quincy Jones.
A legacy it wants to continue. It now has 4 theatres, 2 it's just opened next door.
With the 4 theaters, this now makes us the largest African American performing arts center in the country.
Billy Mitchell, our tour guide, is also part of that legacy. He's been hanging around here since high school.
I got sunshine on a cloudy day.
He's such a local celebrity, a tour group stops for photos with him outside.
I always want to meet this guy.
Yeah.
It's Billy Mitchell.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure meeting you. They call me Mr. Apollo.
A living legend outside this legendary venue, responsible for launching the careers of the greats and where future stars are born. Logan Church, One News, New York.
Fantastic. And Hayley's with us now for sport. Hayley, a blow for the Hurricanes, even as they continue their winning run.
That is right. They had a brilliant performance as they hunker down at the top of the table, marred only by an injury to star halfback Cam Roigard.
There's a great deal of frustration and concern.
Is this his season over, and can the Hurricanes keep their form without him? Plus, 2-time Olympian Byron Wells gets a second life in the halfpipe, but this time it's risk-free. Plus, an unhealthy lifestyle saw Sue Hunter close to death. Now the 43-year-old runs for New Zealand. Kia ora, Dewi. Welcome to sport. The Hurricanes will have to wait a few days to get a proper idea of how serious halfback Cam Roigard's injury is. Roigard, who's been hailed as the Canes' best player during their unbeaten streak, had to be helped off the field as his side thrashed the Highlanders in Dunedin. Zion Dale has more.
Just as things were starting to fall into place for the Hurricanes,
Roigard has a go, almost there, is there!
The man who's played a big part in their unbeaten run, returning home with his season on ice.
Yeah, he's a bit sore this morning. As I say, I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday he's going to try and see some doctors. So yeah, we'll get an update once he sees a specialist.
Cam Roigard in a concerning level of discomfort.
He's looking at his knee. It's his left kneecap, you can see it.
The halfback having to be stretchered off and taken to hospital.
Sense that suddenly there's a great deal of frustration and concern.
Immediately after the game, coach Clark Laidlaw labelling it as serious and mentioned it appeared to be an injury to his patella tendon.
I'm no doctor. They say rather than sort of wasting energy, we'll let him, get to the specialist midweek and not waste too much energy until we hear what's wrong.
Roigard's injury slightly overshadowing what was a dominant Hurricanes performance.
On the inside, gets the return pass and Peter Lakai scores.
26 first half points, ultimately game over. The Highlanders trying everything to no avail.
Was it Patchell now? Intercept! Josh Morby.
The Canes' fast tempo too much for the Southerners to match. A number of set-piece mistakes and schoolboy errors, easy pickings for the visitors to turn into points.
Intercept. Justin Sangsters.
47-12 the final score. The Canes unbeaten on top of the table, heading into a bye week.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's came at a good time or not. It feels like we could maybe, get another couple of games under our belt before the bye.
Across the ditch, only 1 point could separate the two top Aussie sides.
Right, looking for a second. Top right will score.
Down 9 points in the second half, the boot of Brumbies' first five, Noah Lolesio,
nails it,
giving the Brumbies a 2019 win and moving them into third on the table above the Chiefs. Zion Dale, One News.
The Warriors suffered an early injury blow in their clash with the Knights at home this afternoon. The Warriors denied an early try by the NRL bunker before losing in-form standoff Luke Metcalf to a big hit.
What a top tackle from Frizzell. That has hurt Luke Metcalf. That was a ripper of a shot from Frizzell. Got all of Luke Metcalf.
The Warriors soldiering on regardless, opening the scoring minutes later with Jackson Ford for an early lead, and currently they're leading 12-0. To the weekend's other games, and not many would have predicted the St George Illawarra Dragons to triumph over Manly Sea Eagles. The Dragons conceding a 4-pointer early before going on to score 4 unanswered tries to claim just their second victory of the season, winning 2012.
Marshke now, Ben Hunt, kick back inside, here comes Sloan! Sloan has scored! He's got a double!
Elsewhere, the Redcliffe Dolphins too good for the winless Gold Coast Titans, seeing off their Queensland rivals 30-14. Black Caps paceman Matt Henry is Indian Premier League bound as we speak after receiving a last-minute call-up from the Lucknow Super Giants. The 32-year-old played just 2 matches in the IPL previously, back in 2017. His inclusion as a replacement for England's David Wiley coming off the back of a successful home test summer. Meanwhile, it's been confirmed White Ferns skipper Sophie Devine will miss tomorrow's opening one-dayer against England through injury, with Amelia Curter again captain in her absence. And a reminder, you can catch that live and free on TVNZ Duke and Plus from 10:30am. Well, young Kiwi snowboarder Chima Maisie Brown has been crowned 2024 Big Air Junior World Champion. High winds and poor visibility meant the finals weren't able to be held, but the terrible conditions didn't faze the 18-year-old, nailing a new trick.
Dropping in switch. Probably gonna go for a cap double 12. Oh, going for the cap double 14.
A perfect end to the FIS Park and Pipe season. And with the major events all wrapped up, Olympic champion Nico Porteous turns his focus to the invite-only Big Air Nines competition in Switzerland next week, while his new halfpipe coach will be nervously watching. That coach is a double Winter Olympian himself, Byron Wells, taking on the challenge after Porteous split with longtime coach Tommy Pyatt last year. Michelle Prendeville caught up with Wells.
Byron Wells brimming with pride watching this year's X Games silver medal run.
Easy.
Nico Porteous stunning the world.
Should have given it to him, mate.
It's there Wells made his return to one of the biggest stages for the men's halfpipe, not as a competitor, this time as the Olympic champion's new coach.
Never thought in a million years, I thought that once I was done skiing I was going to go be a helicopter pilot and go to the next career.
Maybe he should have listened to 8-year-old Byron Wells, because he knew this is exactly where he'd end up.
I'd like to be a coach when I'm older.
It hasn't been without its challenges though. For years, Wells, one of the world's best in the halfpipe, competing at 2 Winter Olympics.
Absolutely enormous.
Pyeongchang his last, breaking his kneecap in a training run ahead of the finals. The second time his Olympic campaign was cut short due to injury.
It was really tough. It wasn't, it wasn't the dream ending that anyone had hoped for him.
I struggled with it for a wee while with my unfinished business in the sport after the Olympics, but I know it's kind of, to be a coach I get the same enjoyment, yet I'm not terrified for my life while I'm doing it. I just get to tell them to do it instead.
So when Porteous came calling for him to be his new coach, Wells' response almost immediate.
My main thing is just wanting to help him. I've seen him be so successful, and for him to want to win more Olympics and more X Games and more World Cups, if I can be there to help him do that, that's good enough for me.
Wells may finally get his own Olympic success story. Michelle Prendeville, One News.
The Phoenix have held on to secure another important win in the A-League despite losing their captain to a late red card. Wellington stunning the Brisbane Roar with the goal just 76 seconds into the match, but forced into a tense finish after controversially losing Alex Rufer in the 78th minute.
Ultimately the contact is with the studs, but very much playing the ball there. Alex Rufer yet again is going to be on the wrong end of a contentious red card call.
The 10-man Knicks staving off Brisbane's ensuing attacks, now 6 points clear at the top of the table. And in the English Premier League, all-white star Chris Wood has nabbed Nottingham Forest a crucial point. Forest trying to stay afloat after being deducted competition points last week for breaking financial rules, leaving them at risk of demotion, but not on Woods' watch.
Towards Chris Wood, looping in! Chris Wood delivers again just when Nottingham Forest needed him most.
The 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace enough to elevate the Tricky Trees 1 spot clear of relegation with 8 games left. Staying in the UK, and Cambridge has again taken the double in the university boat race, defeating Oxford in both the men's and women's events. Raced on the Thames River for nearly 200 years, alarming levels of E. coli bacteria were detected this year.
We've had a few guys go down pretty badly with the E. coli strain, so this morning I was throwing up. It would have been ideal not to have so much poo in the water, but that's not to take away from Cambridge.
Cambridge men led throughout the 4-mile race, some struggling at the finish, while Oxford started favourites in the women's event but fell off the pace after a near collision, Cambridge claiming their 7th straight win. Hamilton's Sue Hunter has transformed her life. Once a heavy smoker and drinker with a rare blood disorder, now gearing up for her second 24-hour running race. Kate Wells met up with her ahead of next weekend's Asia-Oceania Championships in Canberra.
Running alone is something Sue Hunter is used to. While it can be lonely, she's in her happy place, grateful to be out in nature and, quite frankly, above ground.
No one told me at any stage how close to death I was, and that's including when I was in hospital with the blood clots in my lungs.
Health and fitness once non-existent.
I was a heavy smoker, big drinker, terrible diet, didn't walk anywhere. I would drive to the opposite side of the block for a pack of cigarettes.
The 43-year-old mother of 3 turning her life around 12 years ago. After meeting her now husband Steve, Hunter discovered running.
I did my first event, the Tough Guy, back in 2012 I think it was, and then just got the finish line bug. So with training and coaching from my husband back then, it was increasing my finish line distance. We went from 6, 12, straight up to a half, then into a full. And it's just been a case of challenging myself ever since.
Now a personal trainer and runner, representing New Zealand at next weekend's gruelling Asia-Oceania 24-hour championships across the ditch. It's her 4th 24-hour event and 2nd time wearing the Kiwi uniform.
How do you feel when you've got that New Zealand uniform on?
Still waiting for someone to sit there and say, "Oh, we've made a mistake, wrong Sue." But it's complete pride. Utter amazement.
And while completing the race is the top priority, Hunter is chasing even higher honours.
I want to make it into the World's team for next year as well. I know it sounds cliche, but trying to make my kids happy. They're late teenagers, so impressing them is really hard. I think last time it was 150k within the 24 hour.
It may seem daunting, but Hunter will be tackling it head on with a smile on her face. Kate Wells, One News.
What a legend.
Yeah, that is good. Thank you, Hayley. Well, coming up, Theodore Heringa is next with your latest weather forecast. Plus, from the classroom to the greenhouse, the West Coast students delivering trees to their region in this week's Good Sorts.
Kia kunui, kia kurahi tauti mai, welcome. I te tōnga o te rā, as the sun was setting last night, much of Aotearoa had the perfect weather conditions for the most extraordinary sunsets. Haramai te ātahua, how beautiful is that? No surprises, it prompted a lot of our viewers to grab the camera, get outside and capture the beauty of Mother Nature. Our inbox absolutely full. Tēnā koutou katoa, thank you again for sending those in. Now, looking at the satellite camera, we can see that low just east of Te Ika Amawi moving away towards the Pacific, easing unsettled weather along the east coast, allowing a ridge of high pressure to take over tomorrow, making way for a fine Easter Monday with very little wind. However, we can also see a lot of cloud trapped under that ridge. Do expect cloudier conditions right across the Waiponamu, the South Island. Tēnā, kia aroa ke tātou ki te tai tōkero. Now, starting at the tip of the north, those active clouds will deliver the odd shower to most here, while Whitianga continues to bask in that sunshine with a high of 22 for much of the north. A mainly fine day over Tāmaki, Makaurau, Auckland, with a chance of morning showers and a high of 21. Ka ata ka puapuaki kirikiriroa. A cloudy start for Hamilton before clearing to a sunny afternoon and a high of 21. And those cooler temperatures will create some low cloud and morning fog for most here before the afternoon sun mounts it all away with a high of 21 for Whakatane and Taumarunui. Karangi Paki ki Tauranga Moana. Tauranga looking like the pick of the bunch with wall-to-wall sunshine and a high of 21. And as that low clears away, those clouds will disappear as that ridge of high pressure delivers a fine afternoon across the east, leaving Heretaunga Hastings on top with a high of 21. Te Tai Hauauru, the west coast, can expect some clear skies and sunshine for your Easter Monday and a high of 20. The capital city looking much better tomorrow once those early clouds move off and the sun comes out with a high of 17. Like I said earlier, trapped cloud under that ridge will ensure decent cloud coverage with fine breaks in the afternoon with a high of 18 for Whakatu, Nelson and Te Waiharakeke, Blenheim. And that cloudy trend continues further south over Ōtautahi, Christchurch with a high of 16. With more of the same for central South Island with a chance of a shower or two along the west coast and a high of 17. Ka ata ka puapua ki Tāhuna, a cloudy morning over Queenstown before clearing to a fine day with a high of 18. And clouds will come and go across the lower south with some fine breaks throughout the day, leaving most on a high of 15. And that weather continues over Ōtepoti, Dunedin with the odd shower and a high of 14. Tēnā kia anga whakamua tātou ki te mane. Now, looking to the week ahead, as much of Aotearoa prepare to return to work, the good news, it's fine, it's settled. A few cloudy periods and the odd shower about the Kaikoura coast. Otherwise, it's a beautiful day to head back to mahi. Hei te Wednesday, and on Wednesday, as many of our tamariki head back to school, some may need a raincoat with a lot of cloudy spells across both islands, delivering rain along parts of the west coast. But again, mainly fine for most. Kia hānea nea te whakatai huama. Enjoy the rest of the long weekend.
Good Sorts is brought to you by Cadbury. Give a cheer to a volunteer today.
When a group of West Coast students signed up for a conservation course, they had no idea what a difference it would make. And not just in terms of the skills they learnt, but more importantly, how it would benefit every child on the coast. Hayden Jones explains.
It started with a question from their teacher, Lara.
What are the problems in your community?
Morgan had an answer.
They're just not connected with their community or the forest.
But Tom nailed it.
Plant the trees.
Maya concurred.
Yeah, like how Tom said, planting more trees.
But before planting trees, you need seeds.
You can just hold them.
Which meant sending Mira and Tom to the kitchen with a rolling pin.
We're trying to separate the berry from the seed.
They started doing this 3 years ago. Morgan then sows the seeds that'll become the plants he'll never get to see before he graduates.
No, it will be sad to leave it.
It takes a year to get them to the stage where Rata is refilling their pots.
I love it.
Kakatia,
while Reese files them correctly.
Mingi Mingi, and Harakiki.
In another year, Meadow will weed them and then dine on the weeds.
They are edible. They're basically like oxalis. They're just lemony.
So students from 5 different schools across the West Coast turned their conservation course into a commercial nursery.
It's pretty impressive to see where these students have led it and the growth that's happened.
Then they took the plants on a special trip. This is the part where the students decided to do something magical with their trees. Lara didn't tell them to do it.
Can you remember what you did?
She just asked more questions.
If I'm saying stuff, then I'm not doing my job, you know? Like, it's student-led.
They made a trust.
We are Trees for Change.
And not only taught kids about trees,
You help with the environment and stuff. It helps us breathe.
they gave them one each.
Break it up a little bit, just get the roots out.
Not just for one school.
Every student in the Grey District gets given 1 tree each.
It was really fun.
In the Grey District, there's just over 2,000 students.
They can plant them at their school or take them home. Rotary helped pay for it.
Hey, I'm really proud of you all. You've done really well.
Growing trees has taught Rata a lot.
It's grown my ability to speak to people and to explain what's happening. And Oscar.
She's now got an education scholarship.
This is Mingi Mingi.
While Morgan is certain where life outside school will lead him.
I want to take it further. I want to do this as a job.
All because of trees! Hayden Jones, One News.
Fantastic. And that is One News this Easter Sunday from us, for Maria. Good night.